The single most important skill you need to succeed.
What is the single most important skill you need to solve the problem of figuring out all the things ahead of you? The skill that will build your knowledge and shape your perspective in your journey to living on your own terms. It's the skill of filtering through the bullshit. Proper research, the ability to not only understand that you need to investigate ideas and solutions, but to understand that you need to be creative and innovative when considering a solution. There is never only one way to invest or create wealth, and especially in your journey to living on your own terms, you shouldn't discriminate against any of them blindly. As soon as you do, you close your mind and you limit your potential. Here's the thing. The internet today has so much information, and through this lens, it's said that excluding work, each of us processes 34 gigs of data or 100,000 words every single day. We are already so connected to information that it's actually a problem to concentrate. And on the internet today, if you think about it, most of our searches are actually paid for advertising for clicks. Companies pay for the top spots, and the information we consumed is designed not to educate, but rather to convince or sell. But if you realize this, you don't have to take everything you read online as the truth, but rather as a means to find the truth, to get yourself to a point that you're confident to make your own decisions today and to follow your many tasks at hand. So I'll see you in the next lesson.
How to avoid mistakes and make powerful decisions that serve you.
Look, guys, making mistakes with money is okay. You will lose money along your journey, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because we definitely learn from our mistakes. So the best thing that we can do is get better at avoiding mistakes by learning how to research and investigate our ideas to find a solution. Makes sense, right? You know, I'm the guy people turn to solve their problems, and there's always a problem to be solved. The thing about problems in business and personal finance is that they are fundamentally all the same, but different in circumstance. So the solution isn't always a one-size-fits-all. Now, when it comes to investing, everybody wants the highest return with the lowest risk and as many tax breaks as possible, and also the flexibility and with as little effort as possible. But not everyone is in the same space mentally or circumstantially. You know, I can create a strategy and a plan specific to a client, which ultimately it's the client's decision to accept and apply. But the responsibility falls on me as the all-trusted and knowing, knowledgeable advisor. I remember one time I found myself in front of the owner of a massive company worth hundreds of millions of rands, and I never knew this. Speaking to him over the phone, you know, we just talked about the future and business over the phone 2 times before he set up an appointment with me. When I met him, the first thing he said to me was, "Nice to finally meet you. You are not what I expected while speaking to you over the phone." And I said, "Did you imagine more gray hairs?" We laughed and we made our way into the boardroom. And after 2 hours about talking about his life, his family, my history, where I come from, he opens up the structure of his business on his whiteboard surrounding his personal meeting room, and he gave me the problem that needed solving. A problem that was made up of many other problems, and one as a whole that apparently no one could seem to figure out. And I remember looking at this web of structures and I said, you know, surely an organization this large, you have the resources and of legal and accounting firms. How haven't you solved this problem? And more importantly, how are you leaving this up to me? And he said to me, "I think you have the ability to do it. Do you think you can?" And I said, "Yes." So he then took me to meet his executives and he tells them, "This is Nabil. He's a cool guy and he's going to help us solve the problem." They look at him and say, "The problem?" And he says, "Yes. That's his mandate, so give him the time and whatever he needs." And he shakes my hand and he excuses himself. Long story short, I got up to speed on a lot of information from the team, and within a week I came back with an actual solution. They loved it. I was really proud of this because I was told teams of people couldn't find out the solution to this one, but in reality, it was actually really simple. Because all I did was pretty much module 3 of this masterclass. I drew out the company structure of the future where they needed to be, and in visualizing the tasks, I found that Smaller solutions involved more than one professional field of thought. It needed to be looked at from more than one perspective by different fields: law, accounting, financial planning. And then it hit me. An auditing firm's job isn't to solve the big picture problem, and neither is a legal team or a financial advice team for that matter. And so no one could see the solution. So I picked up the phone, scheduled meetings, and spent a week consulting with accounting, legal, tax specialists from each level in the market: big firms, medium firms, small firms, of professionals, and listening to their take on the scenarios to solve the problem. And each one of them, interestingly enough, had some version of a solution based on their professional lens and scope. One of them actually really wanted to do business with this client and spent a lot of time consulting with me, explaining how their offer is going to save my client in fees, and so how I should introduce them so that they can do business. The reality is that this is the world when we're looking for problems amongst business and professionals. Some people have the right intentions, other people are too focused on the professional scope of work. But after all of that, with all the information and possible approaches, I approached it thoughtfully with a timeline and built the big picture solution and helped them work out a structure in the future that would put 50 million rand back into their revenue every single year. And you can do it too. You don't have to be an expert or go out to become an expert. Think about it this way: in your journey to living on your own terms, the financial freedom part is just a big picture problem. And then your calendar with tasks scheduled into time is the map to get you there. But along the way, there's just a bunch of lies and distractions in the information that's presented to you by different financial companies. So developing the skill of research will allow you to analyze and filter out the noise, avoid mistakes, and make proper decisions. Let's look at a practical example. Let's say we're looking for a cheap investment. The first thing I'll do is search on Google cheap investments South Africa. The first thing that comes up is a company called Easy Equities. On their site, they state that you won't find cheaper fees elsewhere. Should I believe them and go ahead and register an account? Of course not. I'd like to know what the fees actually are up front. So I search through their site until I find annual effective cost of owning one of their retirement annuities, and this happens to be 1.54% per annum. Remember, they claim that I won't find cheaper fees elsewhere, so I look at the next few Google results. What I find: 10X has an annual effective cost of 1.23% per annum. Signia gives me a cost of 0.62% per annum. And then I find an entire comparison of a few product providers in the market. In 5 minutes, I was able to disprove the claim that I won't find cheaper elsewhere and prove the lies of this industry. Well, misrepresentation, lying is illegal. In fact, when I input this difference in fee in my financial freedom calculator, that difference in cost adds 2 years to my financial freedom. If you want to avoid mistakes, practice researching everything. Make notes, list pros and cons. Use your calculator to prove it for yourself. Don't take anyone's word for it. Always ask more questions. Get involved. There are other ways to avoid mistakes, such as leverage your connections. You might not be tech savvy, but you might know someone you trust who is amazing at research. Start a discussion there. What other ways? You could take your professional to lunch. There's an old saying, your lawyer's advice costs $1,000 per hour, but if you take him to lunch, it will cost you $100. Either way, whether you do it yourself or you get help, it's still up to you to filter the noise and biases so you can make your most effective decision. Take it seriously, practice it, and hone in the skill, because it can be applied to all your problems in life. I'll see you in the next module.